Rogers Centre, originally Skydome, is a retractable roof stadium in downtown Toronto, Ontario, Canada, situated at the base of the CN Tower near the northern shore of Lake Ontario. Opened in 1989 on the former railway lands, it is home to the Toronto Blue Jays of Major League Baseball MLB. As well as being improved over the decades during the MLB off-seasons of 2022-24, the stadium was renovated by upgrading the sports facilities and hospitality whilst reducing the capacity for baseball games. While it is primarily a sports venue, the stadium also hosts other large events such as conventions, trade fairs, concerts, traveling carnivals, circuses, and monster truck shows. Previously, the stadium was also home to the Toronto Argonauts of the Canadian Football League CFL and the Toronto Raptors of the National Basketball Association NBA. The Buffalo Bills of the National Football League and NFL played an annual game at the stadium as part of the Bills-Toronto series from 2008 to 2013. The stadium served as the site of both the opening and closing ceremonies of the 2015 Pan American Games, renamed the Pan Am Dome or Pan Am Ceremonies venue due to sponsorship regulations. 4. The stadium was renamed Rogers Centre following the 2005 purchase of the stadium by Rogers Communications, the corporation that also owns the Toronto Blue Jays. 5-6. The venue is noted for being the first stadium to have a fully retractable motorized roof, as well as for the 340-atrium hotel attached to it with 70 rooms overlooking the field. 7. It is the last North American Major League stadium built to accommodate both football and baseball. History, background, and design. The idea of building a domed stadium can be traced back to the bid that Toronto lost to Montreal as the Canadian candidate city for the 1976 Summer Olympics. In the proposal, an 80,000 to 100,000 seat complex would be part of the planned Harbour City development on the site of Maple Leaf Stadium. 8. The contemporary impetus for building an enclosed sports venue in Toronto came following the Grey Cup game in November 1982, held at the Outdoor Exhibition Stadium. The game, in which the hometown Toronto Argonauts, also known as the Argos, were making their first Grey Cup appearance since 1971, was played in a driving rainstorm that left most of the crowd drenched, leading the media to call it the Rain Bowl. As many of the seats were completely exposed to the elements, thousands watched the game from the concession section. To make a bad experience even worse, the washrooms overflowed. In attendance that day was Bill Davis, the Premier of Ontario, and the poor conditions were seen by the largest television audience in Canada, over 7.86 million viewers to that point. 9. The following day, at a rally for the Argos at Toronto City Hall, tens of thousands of people who attended the game began to chant, "We want a dome. We want a dome." 7 months later, in June 1983, Davis formally announced a 3-person committee would look into the feasibility of building a domed stadium at Exhibition Place. The committee consisted of Paul Godfrey, Larry Grossman, and former Ontario Hydro Chairman Hugh McCauley. 11. The committee examined various projects, including a large indoor stadium at Exhibition Place with an air-supported dome similar to BC Place in Vancouver. In 1985, an international design competition was launched to design a new stadium, along with selection of a site. Some of the proposed sites included Exhibition Place, Downsview Airport, and York University. The final site was at the base of the CN Tower, not far from Union Station, a major railway and transit hub. The railway lands were a major Canadian National Railway rail switching yard encompassing the CN Spadina Roundhouse. The desolate downtown lands were part of a master plan for revitalizing the area, which includes City Place. Ultimately, the Robbie Allen concept won because it provided the largest roof opening of all the finalists, and it was the most technically sound. The stadium was designed by architect Rod Robbie and structural engineer Michael Allen and was constructed by the Elliston Construction Company of London, Ontario, and the Dominion Bridge Company of Lachine, Quebec. The stadium's construction lasted about 2 years, from October 1986 to May 1989. The approximate cost of construction was $570,012.1 billion in 2023 $13, which was paid for by the federal government, Ontario provincial government, the City of Toronto, and a large consortium of corporations, 1415.
Financing stadium was funded by a public-private partnership, with the government paying the largest percentage of the cost. The initial cost of $150 million was greatly underestimated. 16 is the final cost was $570 million $1 billion in 2023 $13. 12. Two levels of government, Metro Toronto and provincial, each initially contributed $30 million $63 million in 2023 $13. 12. 16. 17. This does not include the value of the land that the stadium sits on, which was owned by the Canada Lands Company, a Crown Corporation of Canada and the City of Toronto, and was leased for $900 a year through 2088. 18. Canada's three main breweries, Labatt's, Molson, and Carling O'Keefe, and the Toronto Blue Jays each paid $5 million $10.5 million in 2023 $13 to help fund the stadium. 17. An additional 26 other Canadian corporations selected by invitation only also contributed $5 million, 17 for which they received one of the 161 skyboxes for parking spaces for 10 years, with an opportunity for renewal and a 99-year exclusive option on stadium advertising. The initial cost of leasing a skybox ranged from $150,000 to $225,000, $315,040 to $472,560 in 2023 $13 a year in 1989, plus the cost of tickets for all events. The then unusual financing structure created controversy. First of all, there was no public tender for supplies and equipment. Secondly, companies that paid the $5 million fee, such as Coca-Cola, TSN and CIBC, received 100% stadium exclusivity, 12 including advertising rights, for the life of their contract that could be extended up to 99 years. Third, the contracts were not put up for bid, meaning there was some doubt the contracts were made at a market rate. Pepsi stated at the time that had it known the terms of the contract it would have paid far more than $5 million for the rights. Local media like Now magazine called the amount charged to the company scandalously low. 19.
Construction. A cable-stayed bridge was built over the Union Station rail corridor next to the stadium. Stadium goers, pedestrians, and cyclists use the bridge, while hot dog stands are set up on it. Construction of the Ontario Stadium project was spearheaded by lead contractor Elliston. Several factors complicated the construction. The lands housed a functioning water pumping station that needed to be relocated. The soil was contaminated from a century of industrial use. Railway buildings needed to be torn down or moved, and the site was rich with archaeological finds. One of the most complex issues was moving the John Street pumping station across the street to the south of the stadium. Foundations to the stadium were being poured even as the facility in the infield area continued to function, as construction on its new location had yet to be completed. Because the stadium was the first of its kind in the world, the architects and engineers kept the design simple by using a sturdy dome shape and used proven technologies to move the roof. It was important the design would work and be reliable as to avoid the various problems that plagued Montreal's Olympic Stadium. The 31-story high roof consists of 4 panels. One on the north end is fixed in place, and the other 3 are moved by electrically driven train engines that run on high-strength railway rails. The roof, which takes 20 minutes to open, was made out of steel trusses covered by corrugated steel cladding, which in turn is covered by a single-ply PVC membrane. Because of its location south of the major railway corridor, new pedestrian connections had to be built. The infrastructure was part of the reason for the high cost of the stadium. The Skywalk is an approximately 500-meter, 1,600 feet enclosed walkway that leads from the base of the CN Tower and via a bridge connects to Union Station and is part of the PATH network. The John Street cable-stayed bridge was built to provide north-south passage over the rail tracks linking Front Street with the stadium. Construction at the site, which at one time was south of the shoreline, unearthed over 1,500 artifacts. These included a 200-year-old French cannon used as ballast for a ship, cannonballs, pottery, and a telescope. 20. The stadium was completed 2 months late, having been planned to open for the first regular season game of the 1989 Toronto Blue Jays season. The team played the first 2 months of its home schedule at Exhibition Stadium that year.
Opening of the 600th McDonald's Canada location at the Skydome in August 1989 with a performer in a Ronald McDonald costume in attendance. The McDonald's location has since been replaced. The stadium officially opened on June 3, 1989, and hosted an official grand opening show, the opening of Skydome, a celebration, broadcast on CBC television the following evening, hosted by Brian Williams. With a crowd of over 50,000 in attendance, the event included appearances by Alan Thicke, Oscar Peterson, Andrea Martin of SCTV, impressionist Andre Felipe Gagnon, and rock band Glass Tiger. The roof was ceremonially opened by Ontario Premier David Peterson, no relation to Oscar, with a laser pen. The roof's opening exposed the crowd to a downpour of rain. Despite audible chants of "close the roof," Magwood insisted the roof remain fully open.